Yash, thanks very much for being here with me this week. I am truly honored you'd be here. You're at Johns Hopkins, and I'd like for you to put in perspective how great Johns Hopkins really is, using the hundreds and thousands of universities the world over.
Thank you, first of all, inviting me. Jim, if we were to look at this in the United States alone, there are just about 5,000 universities and colleges of higher education. And if you, in that perspective alone, Johns Hopkins stands out big and significant university. But in the world, if you look at the rankings that are put out by Shanghai Jiao Tong University, because that is considered to be a benchmark for research universities, we are among the top 15 universities in the world. In fact, 13.
Out of thousands and thousands.
Thousands and thousands. But more important part is to look at Johns Hopkins in another way. Research enterprise of Johns Hopkins is the largest research enterprise in the United States. We receive the largest amount of research grants of any university on this earth.
It's substantially over $1 billion a year.
It's $1.4 billion. Second, Johns Hopkins put out more discoveries than any other university in the United States. The total number of disclosures on average is about 350 disclosures a year. Third, Johns Hopkins has a physical presence in 122 countries. That represents 65% of humanity. That's the caliber of university we're talking about.
And talk about how many Nobel Prize winners you have.
Hopkins have association with or on faculty or the former students of it, but in the order of 37 Nobel Prize.
Nobody else has even got close to that.
Not many universities have even one.
Okay, let's talk now. You're the dean of the business school there, and you have been for some period of time. Tell us about your MBA program and what I would do if I were interested in coming there to get my MBA.
Jim, the MBA program at Johns Hopkins is a very unique program. Very, very unique, because it is consistent with Johns Hopkins' philosophy of serving people of the humanity. So therefore, the business school's logo or tagline is Carey Business School, where business is taught with humanity in mind. So Hopkins is all about humanity, whether it's medicine, whether it's public health, whether it is any other institutions that we have served in the university.
Why would I want to come there?
For a variety of reasons. If you're really looking for a new kind of business education, it is not just simply business education, it's about leadership. We have seen over the years the business schools have in many cases failed for training people for broad education, to understanding our world has littered with problems. And that business has a special role in solving those problems. And those problems are poverty, health, issues of education, issues of malnutrition, things of that nature.
So
environment.
This isn't just a training ground to tell you how to become a millionaire or how to make a buck.
As a matter of fact, we don't. We think it is important and incumbent on business leaders to be able to address those problems at the same time, help the organizations to succeed economically as well.
So you become not only a success in business, but a success in your community and your whole possibly state.
That is precisely the objective of our MBA program. We believe the MBA program should represent the following things. We must educate people to become intellectually flexible. What I mean by intellectually flexible is to think broad, just like Leonardo da Vinci, who was trained as a military engineer, yet he was perfected the form, he perfected color, light, he studied anatomy, he studied geometry, and integrated all of those pieces together. Because my goodness, the world's problems are so acute, so big, no organization, single organizations can function itself and succeed. Secondly, I think it is equally important as people emphasize critical thinking. But I think critical thinking is only one side of the equation. Empathy is the other side of the equation. Because if you don't have empathy, then the critical thinking alone doesn't work. Especially in a mosaic of culture that we have, we better understand the culture.
Okay, tomorrow let's go forward with that subject. And Yash, I really appreciate you being here this week.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yash, following up on what you talked about yesterday, let me give you this question. You made the statement that our business students need to be less like corporation men and more like Renaissance men, more like Leonardo da Vinci's than Donald Trump's. Talk to us about that.
Jim, as I said yesterday, one of the most important things for business leaders of tomorrow is to be flexible, to be adaptable. As you know, Darwin said the success of any species is not going to be a function of the strength of the species or it be the intelligence of the species. It is going to be ability to adapt to the changes. How do we adapt to the changing environment that we don't even know? It is critical. So therefore, we must teach students how to learn, how to adapt, how to change, how to be flexible. And that is what comes from Leonardo da Vinci. Leonardo da Vinci, as I said yesterday, was a military engineer. Yet we go to Paris to see Mona Lisa. He was the greatest painter. He was the greatest artist. And in fact, his treatise in geometry allows us to fly a helicopter. So therefore, ability to not only simply have in-depth understanding, but the ability to grasp and integrate these things is so important. That is what the flexibility implies. We need to create a business students who understand humanity, because at the end of the day, the business people must get the productivity through people.
So give me a brief course description. If I showed up there and went into a class, what would I expect from the professor?
Well, a variety of things. First of all, we do not teach standard courses like Accounting 101, Marketing 202. We do not teach any of those. We think it is critically important to understand what makes the organization succeed or fail. So for example, we believe the organization must manage its resources. And the resources come financial resources, human resources, other resources that organizations create. And therefore, we must figure out how to trade, how to create the resources, how to manage resources. Similarly, organizations create control systems. Organizations create processes. The manager's not as interested in marketing. They're interested in markets, understanding of markets. So you will see modules that are taught by a team of faculty, and they're not necessarily all from business school. So it's important to understand how an organization succeeds. One. The equally important is what we have called Project in Innovation for Humanity. How to understand complex systems. And complex systems that tend to be in developing countries simply because they don't have infrastructure, they don't have financial systems, they don't have economic system, they don't have legal system, and in many cases they are suffering from so-called the contagious diseases, because 80% of the contagious diseases happen to be in the developing countries. So for example, in some parts of Africa, 50% of the kids from 18 to 25 are HIV positive. How do I develop a supply chain system in those countries for HIV drug distribution when all these complexities are there? That's the second thing you will see in our program that you will not see anywhere.
Your classes are very small, are they not?
Yes, we are. Hopkins, by and large, the classes are very, very small. We do not take hundreds and hundreds of students in any class.
When I was there, I think the classes that I visited were in the 15 to 20 range. And the, what do I want to say, the interplay between the students and the faculty was absolutely astounding.
It is true. Our class sizes are very, very small. We don't see that to be a class of 50 students anytime. And in our program, the classes could not be more than 40 students, and that too on the outside.
Tomorrow, let's talk about your faculty.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Yash, talk very briefly about your facilities, and more importantly, Give us a rundown and an explanation and a description of the quality of your faculty, what they teach, where you got them.
Well, our facility is going to be probably the state-of-the-art facility. As a matter of fact, it's on the water. Every faculty office will have a water view.
In Baltimore?
In Baltimore, yes indeed. It's on harbor. And it is going to be absolutely phenomenal facility for any business school in the country. It has case rooms, it has got discussion rooms, it has the gathering place for the students. It has just incredible, highly interactive facility.
Now talk about faculty.
The faculty. Jim, we have been very fortunate that we have attracted some incredible faculty because we attracted faculty differently. We did not hire them just by virtue of advertising. We invited them. And very different. So because we have a different mission, because our structure of the school is extremely different, we have no departments and we have no areas. As a matter of fact, when we hire faculty, we do not give them a title, a professor of marketing, accounting, or finance, or management. We say you're a professor. Professor means an individual who has a broader global understanding and global view. So why do I have to define their specialty? We hired people from Chicago. We hired people from MIT, from Duke, from Michigan. And we had just recently hired somebody who just gave up his endowed chair at the University of Chicago to come and join the Carey Business School.
And all of the places that you're talking about are top 10 or top 5 business schools.
Indeed. We have not hired anybody and have gone down to level 20 in the world to hire people from.
So what do you talk to them about? Because your programs are so different from the other schools.
That's exactly the reason we can hire them. Because these people come to make a difference. They are not a number. They feel that they can come on the ground floor and build something new, something exciting, and they can make a difference in the lives of students and organizations. My goodness, if nothing, one thing is just so important today in our United States competitiveness. We see the broad indicators, tells us the canary in the mines of competitiveness is not doing well. And therefore, we need to think different models of how we educate people, how they become business leaders of tomorrow. And that's what is important and exciting for our faculty when they come. It's fascinating that how many people have given up their endowed chairs. 4 full professors gave up their endowed chairs to join us as just professors.
Now let's talk about the size of your student body, because I know it's very small in the MBA program.
Our student body will be no more than 80 students in the coming years. It will never exceed 160 students intake in any given time. And there will not be more than 40 students in a class. So our model is one, let's go and build a great school with high quality. It is not based on numbers. It's just simply based on quality. Because our programs are very high touch, very, very high touch program. The project on, as I mentioned to you a few days ago, about the Innovation for Humanity project, or the discovery to market. We think it is important how an entrepreneur can understand science and then take the science to commercialization. That is very high touch project, and we think it is extremely important. Our series on thought and discourse really is the series that allows us to understand and discuss the issues that normally cannot be discussed in the classroom. For example, ethical conflict. It is not just simply ethics. It is how a manager sorts themselves out about these situations in understanding what are the conflicting ideas that leads to a decision. How do we do the human expression? Because it is not just simply communication or negotiation. It is not what you said. It is how you said is equally important. Those things come in our Thought and Discourse series.
Tomorrow, let's talk about the makeup of your MBA class.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here again. You know, while I was there for the month in October and November, which was one of the great experiences of my life, I recall you talking about the makeup of the class and where you got your students, because it's an international program. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, Jim, we are recruiting students very differently than traditional business schools would do. Our goals are that we would like to have 50% of students international, which will be the highest percentage of any university or any business school in the United States. Our goal is to have 50% of the female students in our program. Again, it'll be the highest goal of any business school in the United States. Equally important is, contrary to any schools that typically tend to have 5-year experience as incoming students, we believe those who are 23-year-olds have something to contribute to the understanding of those who are 35-year-olds, and vice versa, because 23 millennium kids or 23-year-olds think very differently. We want to make sure that this 23-year-old understand who their manager is going to be and how they think, and vice versa. So therefore, we believe half of the students will be young 23, 24-year-olds, and the half of the class is likely to be in their 20, 29, 20, 30, 31, 32 years old. So very different mix of students. But by the way, we don't even recruit students exclusively on the basis of GMAT score and GPA. That's just a one cut, and that's it.
So tell us what you look for.
We look for a variety of things. First example we look for is their ability to lead. That means what kind of service they have done in their communities, in their classrooms, or whatever the society in which they live in. Very important to us. Secondly, we are looking for is, why are they interested in business education? Why do they think business is a profession? What are the critical ingredients that business education can contribute to the building up of our society and our country? What do you think in international context? It is simply international business, or it is the business rule deal is about worldview, understanding history, understanding geography, understanding culture, understanding anthropological issues. Those are important issues for us, and this is what we look for. And it is, we have borrowed a lot of this model from medical schools, because the medical schools do just that. They look at their MCAT scores, they look at their GPA scores, that's only first cut. Then they look at their ability to write, ability to understand, ability to comprehend, ability to articulate. At the same time, we do not take any student without interview.
And what do you look for in the interview?
We look for ability to convey their message, their feelings. We're looking for a whole person. Therefore, we're looking for their emotions. We're looking for their commitment to education. We're looking for, more importantly, is the day they retire, how can they tell us, describe to us what they have achieved in the world? Therefore, we're looking for their goals, their aspiration. These are the kinds of things we look for. Therefore, it doesn't matter whether you're in Indonesia, or you are in Africa, or in Asia or somewhere else, or in Latin America. We must interview you before you actually will be admitted in our program.
You know, I spoke to several of the classes while I was there, and one of the classes I spoke to, we went around the room talking, and all at once it appeared to me, finally, that I had a bunch of doctors in the room. Mm-hmm. And I think when we counted up, more than half of the students in that class were MDs.
Jim, even in the incoming class of the full-time program, there are several candidates are MDs. There are several candidates are PhDs. In our business of medicine program, was originally designed for MDs. And even now, more than half of the class are MDs and PhDs. And that brings a very different level of quality of conversation and the discussion that takes place in a business of medicine program, which is incidentally running for the last 14 years. And we have done extremely, extremely well, because I tell you, the business of medicine is a big business. Put it another way. On average, it is believed that 30 to 40% of the expenditures in healthcare systems are wasted. The doctors only get to have, the patients get to have only 55% of what is prescribed by the doctors. Put another perspective, which is equally important. 100,000 people die simply because of wrong diagnosis, medical errors. 20,000 people die in the United States simply because of lack of health care. Another 100,000 people die because they get infection in hospitals. 1 million people die in the United States because of things such as tobacco, alcohol, obesity, and lack of physical fitness. These are avoidable. We believe it is so fundamentally important in today and tomorrow that we manage healthcare systems because aging population. Worldwide, as the aging population comes along, we will see a reduction in the growth of wealth of human beings by 2/3. That's about $31 trillion. So the business of medicine is important education component for any business school. My goodness, it represents 17.5% of our economy and going on to become 20%. We spend $2.25 trillion on healthcare systems, yet we have no management principles that governs this system.
I know. We seem to be overwhelmed by it.
Indeed.
Tomorrow, let's wrap this up.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here. Yash, thanks for being with me this week. I have one last question. In recent years, Johns Hopkins has increased its efforts to commercialize its many discoveries and inventions. Will the Carey School of Business and the Johns Hopkins Global MBA program be involved in these efforts? And I assume the answer is yes.
The answer is, of course, yes. As I mentioned a few days ago, Jim, Hopkins have a public disclosure of about 350 discoveries a year. The largest number of discoveries of any university, period. The question then becomes, if we have these discoveries, wouldn't it be wonderful if we actually translate that into a product or a process that is used by humanity? That's where Carey Business School comes into place. Now, typical business schools will have a business plan. But we fundamentally believe the business plan only comes once students understand the technology or the science, understand the minds of scientists. So that's very different. It's very Hopkins. So therefore, we expect our students to spend a considerable time in our schools of medicine, in bioengineering, in public health, to learn the psychic of scientists, learn how a science was developed. Because if you understand the science, you can always now figure out the applications. But if you don't understand science, you're not going to be able to understand applications of it. And that's the key which we develop at Hopkins. So as a result, we believe that in any given year, we will take anywhere between 20 to 25 those disclosures and have the students' teams, and 4 to 5 students a team. In the first semester would be the second semester of the program, and the first semester for this project. They will spend all that time understanding how to create intellectual property. How do you understand science? How do you understand the scientist? How the evolution occurred for the proteins or mapping of human genome or whatever that might be. And then you understand the applications of it in the following semester in understanding financial systems, marketing systems, and understanding how to raise money and be able to create the advisory committees of venture capitalists, CEOs, attorneys, to be able to take that an idea to a situation that you can actually create a business.
Do you find that these principles that you develop or the conclusions that you come to can be universally applied? No matter where the student comes from, they can take them back home?
Absolutely.
And this works?
Absolutely it does. And the reason what we teach is not a tool. We do not teach a program. We teach philosophy, how to, in the sense of how to understand a scientist. A mind of a scientist is important. Let me give you an example. Mapping of human genome. It's unique for every human being, that map. That means if it is unique, then we can use that for verification of an individual as opposed to a signature. If it is unique, then we also know how this person will act or would react to a certain food, certain drug. Or the fact is that particular map also tells us something about individuals' proximity to the ability to attract certain disease. So therefore insurance, health insurance, life insurance. All of a sudden the science has unlocked the potential of all kinds of industries that didn't exist before. And that's what the Hopkins solution is all about.
I think we in Nevada don't understand the impact that a great university can have. I remember when I was there reading that Johns Hopkins had an impact, an economic impact in Maryland or in the Baltimore area of $10 billion a year.
Indeed.
It's unbelievable.
Well, Jim, to look at it this way, a one PhD or 100 PhDs are responsible for 62 patents. If you produce more PhDs in engineering and science, you have more patents, more economic development. Very simple. Therefore, research is critical for any state, any society, any country. And therefore, the funding is fundamental for humanity.
Well, it seems to me that every university in the world could look at Johns Hopkins and say, that is the standard of the world. We may not be able to make that in the next 10 or 20 years, but that's at least, that gives us an idea of where these things really can be.
Oh, absolutely. The reality is if you don't aim for the stars, and you won't be able to get to the moon.
Gotcha. Josh, thanks very much for being here. I want you to come back, and I know you will, because as I've told people, I think that you're the only person I've ever known that I thought was as smart as Bill Clinton.
Thank you very much. I'm honored.
Thank you, sir.